Hello, I'm back with another video, and just a warning right now, there might be graphic content in this video, so if you have a weak stomach, I suggest you leave now. Anyway, I am reacting to True Cult Horror Stories, animated, and it's by Horror Shorts Party. So let's get on with the reaction.
As a child, I would always camp out with the family. It had become tradition. Every summer, we'd head down to the spot by the side of the highway. My uncle, whom I'll call Richard, owns the property there and had allowed us to stay there as long as we wanted to, as long as we cleaned up afterwards. We had packed the usual things: a few tents, a cooler for the booze for the cooler, some stuff to grill over the campfire, a magnesium fire starter, hunting knife, and my stepdad's .44 revolver in case of coyotes. We live in Southwest Texas, so it isn't uncommon to run into them. Everything started off normal. Everyone was having a good time. The kids and myself were all having fun, skipping rocks across the river, fishing, unsuccessfully, while the adults were by the tents watching over us. Everything was nice, I guess. If only I knew that would change. The next morning started like the other ones. While we were there, the adults were sluggishly moving around, hungover from drinking all night while the kids and I slept. We would stay asleep until someone started to cook over the campfire. After we would wake up, the rest of the day would carry on. We'd walk around the area, but never too far. It's not that we weren't allowed to. We had always just feared going too far out into the woods without the adults. We'd always go through this clearing every time we went out. It was like another camp clearing, except the fact that it was eerily dark, darker than the surrounding area, and had this atmosphere over it that would just draw us in. We only left because we'd be called back to our camp. The sun set over the hills around us, and that signaled bedtime. The adults would make sure that we got into our tents. Then we'd go back to the campfire, then they would drink and laugh. Though, they went to bed this night instead. I assumed they were just tired as well, with all the nightly drinking and all. I couldn't fall asleep that night. I tossed and I turned, eventually managing to shove my little brother off the air mattress in our tent. I decided I needed to relieve myself, so I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and went off into the woods. The walk to nature's restroom felt longer than usual. Must have been a dark night. I had eventually found a spot that I would be okay with, and I dumped over there. It's when nature's call had vanished that I noticed little lights moving in the trees. I, being a curious 15-year-old I was, followed them. After what felt like hours of staying off paths and behind trees, we got to the clearing the kids and I have always gone to. The lights turned out to be men in hooded cloaks, the color of blood red, carrying torches into a triangle in the clearing. In the middle was a cross. Another hooded figure had stepped into the triangle and hung what looked like a person in a horse mask. I managed to get a better look at what it was. These sick fucks had sewed on the horse's head onto someone. I wanted to puke. Why would someone do this? The hooded men started chanting. Another one brought in a woman whose eyes were covered by a blindfold, and her hands and feet were bound by rope. They set her down in a triangle, facing the cross. The man that had brought her in removed her blindfold. She looked up at the cross and let out the most blood-churning scream I had ever heard. The hooded men banging and chanting again, increasing in volume as the man in a triangle lifted his hands to reveal the blade. As he brought it into the air, The
I'm sorry, I have to pull it.
chanting stopped. He began to speak in some kind of unknown language. Latin, I assumed. The hooded man brought the blade to the woman's throat and stopped speaking. Then suddenly he shouted, "To this day, I still hear his words. May your tainted blood awaken thy sour soul." Upon shouting those words, he dragged the blade across her neck and removing her head from her body, holding her head up to the cross. The man-horse thing on the cross began to shake and thrash. Later it began to scream. It was horrifying. It sounded so unnatural. Then it looked at me. It wasn't like it just glanced at me. It full-on locked eyes with me. That's when I decided I've seen enough. I turned on my heels and I ran. I ran faster than I thought I ever could. I got back to the camp and I made sure I wasn't followed. Thankfully, I wasn't. I guess I was gone longer than it seemed, because the sun was starting to rise again. To this day, I still don't know what I saw, but I know I saw it. It still haunts me, those gaping eyes locking with mine. I think that day I lost my soul through my eyes. I'll never know what happened, and I wish I hadn't seen it. But never am I going back there again.
Okay, so that was very graphic.
Kevin had just turned 20.
Just a warning, if you can't handle this, I'm sorry. That was very, 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 very graphic. I didn't realize how graphic it would be.